Hello, I'm Jim Rondo from the Canadian Company of Pilgrims Victoria chapter. I'm pleased to welcome you to this edition of our video series about the Camino. Today we're talking about the Camino Portuguese. You basically have two options, one from Lisbon to Santiago, which is about 630 kilometers, and the second, which is more popular, is Porto to Santiago, which is about 280 kilometers. We have Richard and Darlene Dumarchon who are going to talk about their walk from Porto to Santiago, which is their journey and what they encountered. Hopefully you enjoy. Thank you. Hello, and how are you today?
Thank you.
Good. How are you,
Good.
Jim?
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to talk about the Portuguese Camino and your walk. And first, what we want to know is how you heard about the Camino and why you decided to walk the Camino Portuguese.
Oh, so I first heard of the Camino actually from a friend I taught with at school. He said he was about 18 or 19 and he went to Spain and he went through a series of monasteries. But he said he went in January, and this would have been before the movie came out with the Way movie. So it wasn't very popular back then, but he mentioned he had gone through them and he found it extremely lonely being in his teens and doing it. And then when the movie came out, we actually watched the movie, and then that made us want to do it more. And then there was a couple other documentaries that were out. Probably the big one was the one with the priest. The priest from Arizona, Footprints, right? I think it's called. So that was one that really made me keen. I don't know about you, dear.
Yeah, I think all of that. And then one of the books I read, The Camino Letters by Julie Kirkpatrick, I found that really, really inspiring, where she had people really significant in her life give her a letter to read on each day of the Camino as a point of reflection for her. And I actually got to meet her at my school and and dove a little bit deeper into her experience. And that made me even a bigger desire to go on the trip.
Excellent. And so why the Portuguese versus the Spanish Camino or other ones?
Probably more for me. Being our first Camino, I'm quite a nervous traveler, and I was a little bit worried about my fitness level and how I might be on the longer Camino, the Camino Francés. So from everything that we read, it looked like the Camino Portuguese, walking along the coastal route in the summer. We hoped, a cool breeze, which would be great for the temperature in the summer. But also it's primarily flat. There are some uphills and downhills, but nothing too significant. So I was just really hoping to set myself up for success that way.
And at the time, Darlene had a job where we could only get so much time off. So we knew we could finish this one in about 3 weeks. So it fit really well with the timing. We were about 14 days in total, and then we took a little time on either side. So it worked out great.
Excellent, excellent. So can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Portuguese Camino and anything you'd like to explain about what you learned or what you did as far as research?
Well, most of our research actually came from this book, the Brierley book, and a lot of the history's in there. But the one interesting part was about the Variante Spiritual, where the body of St. James was brought back via boat from the Holy Land, and the trail from Padrón to Santiago. So we wanted to walk that part, but we also wanted to do take the route where the boat was. But we didn't know a whole lot about the history of it, but we did know there was a lot of different routes that were taken to Santiago, and this was one of the routes from the south. We chose the coastal, I think, more because it was along the coast and we thought it'd be a little cooler, but it's not the more popular of the routes. So I think in the olden days, most people would have taken more of the inland route, but we stayed on the coast. Okay. But I can't remember all the history right off the top of my head, Jim, but it's explained really well in the book. And there was a lot of really good literature we were able to find that had stuff on it when we were there. For example, we found this map. It's kind of hard to see on Zoom, but the map had really good barcodes and stuff that you could scan, and it would give you a little bit of history. Some of it's all in Spanish, and there was a lot of history on on the plaques and stuff along the way.
So generally you used the Brierley book and some information you picked up on the way. Is there any other apps or other information that you use to help you guide your walk?
Yeah, there was a couple good ones. Maps.me we found to be really good. With Maps.me, you could just type in restaurant and it would find the nearest one, and you could see if it was on the route, easy to find. We were able to download a file that showed the whole coastal route on it, which made it really easy. We probably didn't use the book as much as we actually needed, because all of it was on the Maps.me app, and Booking.com was really good for booking. There was a Spanish app as well that we used. The pilgrims that we were walking with, they were really good about suggesting things from their particular countries that worked. And one of the ones from Spain was quite good. There's also a Wise Pilgrim has an app that's quite good, that goes along the coastal route and explains some of the towns and gives you the history of the towns along the way. So there's tons of apps. The book was really helpful before we went, but I think the apps were probably more useful as we went, because it told us directions and how far to different places. Because when you got to go to a bathroom, it doesn't look very far on the map, but when you got to find it, you got to find it.
I agree. And the apps are a little bit lighter too, as far as carrying something.
Quite a bit lighter.
So talk to us about the terrain and where you started, and a little bit about your journey.
For me, I love the terrain. I loved walking. We started on a boardwalk, and like I said, primarily flat for most of the way. I loved walking along the sea. Beautiful, beautiful landscape. And we would pass a lot of smaller churches and beautiful homesteads. And you're not along the sea for the whole part, obviously, like you're sort of meandering in and out quite a bit, but I absolutely love that. I found it just having that breath of fresh air every single day. I love that. It really helped me to just relax, coming from a very hectic style job to now being in a place where I could just stop and breathe and walk comfortably and reflect as I needed to every day.
And you started in Porto?
Porto, yes.
And how far would you walk, and are you talking a lot of elevation, or are you basically flat?
It's pretty flat. There were 2 days that had a bit of elevation on it. The highest, I think, was 450 meters. So that sounds quite high, but it was pretty gradual, and the terrain is good because their trails there are different than trails here. I'm used to hiking in the woods with a lot of routes and other things here in BC, but when you're there, they're kind of old roads for the most part. And but the majority of the time, it was pretty flat. I mean, it would roll a little bit. It was nice to get a few hills just to get a change of pace. Just walking on the flat can be a little bit boring, as you know, being from Winnipeg. But sometimes it can, that chance to mix it up was good. So there was a good range of boardwalk. There was one place that would have been different than the time you went, because it had they probably had about 1 kilometer of raised boardwalk, and we didn't have to walk in the sand. So we thought we were going to have to walk quite a bit in the sand based on our walks here with the company of pilgrims and talking to people. But for the most part, I think it was maybe half a kilometer we walked in the sand. So it wasn't as much. We had the option to if we wanted to, but we just didn't. So yeah, it was pretty straightforward walking. We tend to average somewhere around 20 to 26K a day. So it wasn't, they weren't too long a days. And it was cool. We were really lucky. It wasn't hot.
And what time did you leave as far as get there, and how did you get there?
To get to the Camino?
Yeah.
We flew directly into Porto. So we went from here to Toronto to Porto. We spent the first night just chilling because of time change and things. And we chose the next morning when we got up to walk out to the first town, which was Matosinhos. I can't remember how you say it, but the local tram goes out that way. So we walked along the sea, walked out that far, got our legs, made sure our gear was good, tried on our packs. If we needed anything, we knew we had time to get it the next day in a bigger center. And then we took the train back to our Airbnb that night. And then the next morning we took the train back out, and then we went on from there to Vienna de Conda, I think it was.
Yeah.
So
did you ship your packs in the plane, or did you carry them in the overhead compartment?
well, the Camino provides. So we had our polls, so I checked my bag. We had a free check bag, and Darlene carried hers, but we put all the liquids and everything in mine. And when we got to Porto, my bag was missing, which created a bit of stress but you know, we kind of took it cool. We went to the baggage check and everything, and it turned out there was this one area where they put different shape bags. So we walked down, and my bag was sitting right in the middle. So we got my bag, and off we went. So, you know, everything seemed to work out, and that seemed to happen a lot on the trip. And when you talk to most people who've done the trip, they'll tell you that, you know, the Camino provides as you go. And we found that a lot. There was a lot of coincidences where, you know, you just need something and it would show up, or, you know, you'd be down a little bit and something would happen to pick you up. And, you know, our bags was another example, but we carried our bags for the whole pack. For the whole trip, we didn't use any baggage carriers or anything.
But there that service is there if you need it, right?
I think so.
Yeah, we saw signs for it, but we didn't investigate it, so I'm not sure. But I'm 90% sure that if you wanted to, you could certainly find it. Certainly on the central route. I'm not sure if it'd be as easy on the coastal route.
Okay.
But
And so talk to us a little bit about the accommodation and how you booked it and what the accommodation was like.
well, as Darlene mentioned, she was a bit of a nervous traveler, and when you're traveling as a couple, you don't want to get yourself into a situation that may not work out very well. So I booked the first 7 or 8 days from here, mostly using booking.com, private accommodations. What I found was traveling as a group of 2 of us, we could get a bunk in an albergue or a common area, almost like a youth hostel, and it would cost us, I don't know, 12 euros each or 24 euros, or we could get a private room for 29 euros. So we just decided to get the private room with the bathroom most of the time. I snore sometimes, and we just felt that was better for other people and probably better for us too. And so the prices weren't that bad for them. The one mistake I think we did make was booking too far in advance. There were a few times where we were worried about finding places, so we booked, but though then because we had a place to get to, we were kind of, if we missed the first one, then we either had to walk twice as far the next day, or we had to, you know, it's kind of a snowball effect, although they were pretty good at canceling, I think. If I had to do it again, I'd probably book the first day, maybe 2. Now that I've done the route, I get a better idea of how far we could go, but there were some places we would have definitely loved to see, like Bayona had awesome beaches. It would have been nice to stay there a day. And yeah.
And what other things did you see on your route that really are memorable?
Well, speaking of accommodations, why do you mention the hotel we were at that one place?
The one that Chris.
Yeah, the one Chris Ballmer suggested.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I can't remember which town. And it was absolutely beautiful. It's just I mean, a lot of the auberges, they're designed with hikers in mind. So the accommodations are beautiful. They're clean and safe and welcoming. There's dining area. There's space for your food, and the people that are running them at the front checkouts are very helpful. They're, you know, they help you with if you want to locate a grocery store or whatever. So I really love them. I don't think we had one poor place for accommodation. I thought they were just lovely.
And the best one? Can you recommend the best one?
But the best place we stayed at was just before Santiago. Can't remember the name of it, but the guy gave us a really nice stamp. It was a stamp with wax and stuff. Milla something anyway.
And so what other challenging or rewarding moments do you remember that you'd like to share?
Probably the most rewarding was I loved the simplicity of this whole trip, just having our backpacks and having a few items with you and being so happy with having so little. I love that, absolutely love that. I love the quiet. there wasn't as many people. I think I found that really challenging once we arrived to the cathedral. I was overwhelmed by the number of people and like talking at each other. I was used to us having that real quiet days. I found that quite the challenging part of it. And I guess the challenging part for me was once we arrived at the cathedral, I kind of thought I wasn't ready to finish. I thought, oh, is this done? And so I wanted to walk to Finisterre, and we couldn't. We ended up taking a bus because of the days that we had left. But I guess I wasn't too sure what to expect once I got to the cathedral. But I guess I just wasn't ready for it to end. Yeah, I really wanted to continue on.
Okay.
So that's me though. But I absolutely love the quiet and the simplicity. It was good for me. Yeah.
For me, I took a hint from that Camino Letters book and asked, I think 14 people to write me a question for me to think about on the trip. And every day I would read one of the letters for myself that had a question, and I'd take the whole day and reflect on the letter while the poles were tapping on the ground. And I didn't listen to music or anything, so it was really quiet. Because Darlene and I either walked together or we walked together apart and had time to think, it gave us quite a bit of time to think on the trip. It wasn't as busy. Like, I don't think people would find it as busy as a Camino Frances if you've done that one. It's much, much quieter, and the coastal route is quieter still than the central route. And so there was a lot of time where you weren't really walking with anybody. But there was this one time when Darlene was really tired. We were going up one of the bigger hills, and we had met a fellow who was an internal medicine doctor and a psychiatrist. So he had a really interesting background. He was quite spiritual, and he said the rosary every day. And being Catholic, that was good for us. And Darlene was quite tired, and we hear his poles coming up because he doesn't have rubber on the end of his poles. Mm-hmm. So like clunk, 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 clunk. But just the time we needed it, and he was praying the rosary. So we joined with him and, made it to the top of the hill. So it was another time that was just kind of interesting that everything kind of came together. So, and then for him, he also found that there were times when he needed things that they came together. Like he really needed the rubbers on the poles, and I had a spare set. So I was able to give those to him, and whatever people needed seemed to work out. So that was kind of a very interesting thing with the Camino that you don't see sometimes in other places.
Well, talk about the variant spiritual, and tell us a little bit about what you did and why you chose it, and tell us a little bit about that part of the route.
I didn't quite know what to expect. I just knew that it added an extra day to our route, but I absolutely loved it. The landscape is very similar to some of the hikes that we would do here out on the West Coast. So being back in the forest and with water, and again, very quiet, but just a lovely way to spend the day with further reflection. And then I was looking forward to the ferry, the Stations of the Cross in the water, which was absolutely beautiful. I know you have a brochure.
Yeah. So we didn't keep hardly any brochures, but we kept this one. It's probably the only one we kept. It's online too, so it's not hard to find. Maybe we can put the link in the notes. But it is the only maritime Stations of the Cross in the world. So we wanted to hike that from Pontevedra, where you go, and then you go to Puyo, and there was a monastery there. The monastery was really cool to visit. You can actually eat there. We did have a coffee, and I think you can also stay there. Our issue was we weren't too sure if we wanted to go, if we wanted to stay there, because it would have been a really, really short day. So we kept going up to Armentia. There's only one hostel there, and there's also a monastery. So you can book the monastery, but we got there in time to stay at the albergue. And it was beautiful up there. Like the walk up the hill was really good. It was really nice views all the way. And then the next day we walked down to Villanova de Arusa, and that walk is called the Walk of Stone and Water. And as you walk through, there's 13 old mills that are there, and you can see where they've actually carved out the channels for the water run the water wheels for the mills. It's just absolutely stunning as you walk down that part, and then you get to the bottom and you follow a river, and the river has great plants, and it's just a beautiful walk. It's quite a long walk that day, but really nice. And then you get to once you get to Villanova de Russa, you have to book the ferry to go the next day. The ferry gets up really early, like sunrise early in July for us. We took the first one, and then that takes you all the way to Padron.
Okay.
So that trip from Pontevedra, and then you go to Padron, or you can do the interior route. But I would really recommend recommend that route. It does take a little bit longer. It's just that one day that you have to get to Armentiera. Make sure you go early so you can actually get in there. They don't take reservations. Or stay at the monastery. The monastery is beautiful. And I think that's where the nuns gave us, there was nuns and a priest, and they gave us a blessing, which was really nice. We really appreciated having that there as well.
Well, you talked about Padron. Now, one of the questions I had is about food. Talk to me about the food that you encountered, or whether you liked the food or cost of the food. Talk to me a little bit about what you ate.
I think everything we ate seemed cheap to me. It was very, very, very affordable, and we weren't really on a budget. We whatever we needed or wanted to eat, we could. I loved all of the bakery, like croissants and so forth, especially for mornings, and cafe con leche, which is like a latte here in the West. That was absolutely amazing every day. I did try octopus once. Felt like I needed to try it. It was interesting. I don't know that I would do that again, but any of the seafood that we had was amazing.
Yeah, well, in Portugal, when you ordered your coffee, you got a little bun or something to go with it, which was really nice. So that often set us up for the morning, and then we, after we got going, we'd stop and have a quick coffee. We weren't super quick in our coffees. We sort of took our time. We didn't rush because we had places booked, which was an advantage. The octopus we had a couple times. There was one day we were starving, and it was a holiday or something. So the only place we found to eat was literally on the road. We were this far from the traffic, and the only thing they were cooking there was boiling octopus because there was some sort of holiday. So we had beer and octopus that day.
Yeah.
But it was good. I actually really enjoyed it. So
and we went to grocery stores or outdoor markets anytime we wanted fresh fruit, and there was no shortage of that. That was easy.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What do they call octopus there?
Pulpo.
Pulpo, that's what it was. Yeah, so there was one place that had a big pulpo festival, and there was like vats of pulpo along the thing. And what was frustrating was, you're walking and you had to walk across a river and around, and then you walk through all the pulpo, and then you walk right back by the bridge. You were like 30 meters, but they had the trail set up, so you took an extra 2 kilometers to see all the pulpo stuff. So
that's good.
Yeah, I was kind of, I guess it was a bit of a scam maybe, but it was kind of cool to see the town too. So
did you try some Padron peppers?
No, I didn't.
We did.
I didn't. You did.
I did. Yeah.
Did you get a hot one?
I think I got one of them. I was ready. Dennis had me ready for it.
And talk about the budget. Like, how much did you spend between accommodations and meals and all the rest?
I'd say on average our where we stayed was roughly around 30 euros. Dinner would be around 10 each, so that'd be about 50, and then we, another 10 maybe. So, we would probably be around the 60, 70 euro range. Some days might be a little bit more. It was a little bit more once we got to Spain. And then if we stayed at a hostel, it would sometimes be a little bit cheaper, but not a lot cheaper. Okay. It just depended. I think that's one thing to be really careful if you're traveling in a group, whether you want to stay in the hostel or whether you want the private room. The downside of having the private room was I don't think we developed a Camino family in the same way. So if we were to do the Frances, it'd be nice to actually develop that Camino family that way. But there wasn't a lot of people traveling either. We met up with a couple people, but Um, we didn't meet up with a lot of people. They were all friendly, lots of Bom Camino, but not. We seemed to be separated enough that we didn't seem to run into each other much.
And my sense, I think there was a lot of people who wanted to be alone.
Yeah.
Maybe that was just our experience, I think.
Yeah.
And in communications, when you talk to fellow pilgrims or people from Portugal, did you have any communication difficulties?
No.
Portugal, no problem at all. I think everybody in Portugal spoke English. We ran into very few people in Portugal we couldn't get. I don't even think we ran into anybody, to be honest. In Spain, there was a few times it was a little bit harder, but I think they see so many pilgrims that it's okay. And we had picked up, just some rudimentary words to be all right. And it, normally you could point at stuff you wanted. A lot of the menus had pictures, or the standard dessert was the upside down ice cream cone. And you just had a big board to pick at which ice cream you wanted, so it wasn't hard.
But I think that was one of my disappointments in myself, that I think people, they really appreciate if you try to speak Portuguese and Spanish. So I think that would be a goal for next time.
Yeah. And so if you were going to recommend it, why would you recommend the Camino Portuguese?
In my perspective, it's long enough. I think it's almost 300. It's 280 or so kilometers. And I think if it's your first time and if you're a little bit nervous like myself, I think it was a wonderful one to start with. And also because of the elevation. If you're worried about if you have knee problems or whatever, it's flat enough. I think that you can be very, very successful. And there's a lot. It's just, I think it's just beautiful walking along the coast. Just a lovely way to experience it.
Yeah. When you get to the cathedral, you get a choice to get one of these certificates. Yeah. So with this one, I don't know if you can see it, but they recorded it as 280 kilometers. Oh. So we went a little bit over that. Now, they don't recognize the Variante Spiritual as being extra kilometers, I don't think. And we were really worried that because we were taking motorized transport, that we may not get our Compostela, but we were assured that it was not an issue, and it wasn't. So that's something people talk about a little bit as you're going, but we didn't have any issues at all. And I believe Mary confirmed that while we were out. Mm-hmm. I think we may have texted Dennis, and Dennis checked with Mary, but I can't remember. Excellent. So, but if you're going to do one, it is a great one to do as a starter, especially if you're a little bit worried about stuff. I know a lot of people look at the first day on the Camino Frances as being a pretty grueling day, getting up to the monastery, and the hardest day really was on the Variante Spiritual, which was, I think it was 28 kilometers that day. So it was about the same distance, but it was only 450 meters. And it was not a hard walk up. And then you're going through eucalyptus forest, which smells beautiful. And so it was really nice mix of terrain.
And anything else before we sign off?
I think one thing that I would recommend is the Camino 101 sessions that we attended were so amazing and very, very helpful in preparation. I don't think it matters which Camino you do, but in particular, the one around your backpack and what to pack. I went to every one of those that I could go to and really listen for some of the similar themes that were coming out, things to bring or not to bring. And I'm so glad that I paid attention, because having the right pack and the right shoes, it just makes your Camino. It allows you to do the reflection and enjoy it the way you want to, when you don't have to worry about blisters and everything else, the walking poles, everything. So that would be one thing that I was most grateful for, was having that support before we went.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, less is more for sure. The only thing I would add is if you're doing the route, kind of try to figure out why you want to do the route, but don't be so stuck on your why that you're not open to a different why emerging as you go, because it will happen as you go. For us, it was a fairly spiritual journey to find yourself and to find your place. And we also had a chance to go to Fatima, which was really good. So a little bit of planning about other things that you could do is is also worth doing. So give yourself time. Don't it took us 14 days ish, and it's nice to have the time on either side. So don't try to rush the experience. We tend to always want to be in a place, and I think taking your time is really good and slowing down.
Well, I'd like to thank you very, very much on behalf of the Canadian Company of Pilgrims for your time and your preparation for this, because it was an excellent interview. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you on our next walk.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Jim. We'll be there.